Hey everybody, Maddie here, and today what I'd like to talk about is what I think is one of the biggest problems that we are facing today because it touches and trickles down into so much of our everyday lives, from our work to our communities to our families, and definitely in terms of institutions like governments and corporations that impose laws and actions that directly impact all of us. This problem not only affects our relationships, but literally our ability to have a strong society where we support each other and lift each other up. And in my opinion, it blocks us from having a country and a world where people can truly thrive. This problem is blocking us simply from having more happiness and health in our lives, while also weakening our skills of working together with others to harness our unique abilities that allow us to create and build things that benefit all of us. So this problem I am talking about today is what I am calling and referring to manufactured disconnection. Now, I am not the first person to come up with this phrase, but I do feel like that we don't really hear about it much. We don't talk about it much, and I don't think there's a big awareness about it. So that is why I'm talking about it here today, to build awareness so that we can take action. Manufactured disconnection at a high level, before I go into more detail, is the idea that there are systems and people actively working to keep us disconnected and encouraging us to fight with each other and make each other enemies, so that we do not work in solidarity against these very systems that are truly keeping us down. And I would also say, while keeping us from advancing policies that benefit all of us. And when we are increasingly divided, these systems can continue squeezing as much productivity out of us as possible while hoarding the majority of the wealth and resources that we create at the top, rather than fairly distributing them to the working and the middle and the lower class. So in this video, I am going to break down exactly what manufactured disconnection is. I'll share some thoughts on how I think it came to be. I'll offer some ideas and thoughts about the impacts of this and what we might be able to do to work against this problem. I believe that this is literally an existential crisis for most of us. I think that if we continue down this path of division, we will continue to have rights and resources taken away from us, or at the very least, I think that our lives will be more difficult and we'll have less ability to be healthy and happy and experience fulfillment, which I think most people want. I really believe that most humans in this world want similar things. I believe that if you were to ask, people would say they want themselves and their families to have a comfortable and easeful life where they can pursue their passions, their inspirations, and their dreams, right? How can we truly achieve this if we don't work together to create this world? I wonder this all of the time. Because to me, if we don't learn to work better together, history, and I would say especially recent history, has shown that those in positions of leadership and power won't truly work towards this dream with us or for us. All right, so let's get into the details. If you don't know me, I'm Maddie Stevenson, and I work to create spaces and resources where we can learn to have better connection with others through difference, where we can develop leadership skills to inspire and empower others, and also to help people just work better together so that we can use our unique human abilities to create, to build, as I've said, to innovate, to take actions towards movements and goals that help us all live better lives. So if this message speaks to you at all, please support the work by giving a like or a follow, or just by commenting and giving your thoughts, because it's always great to talk to people about all of this. Okay, so how did I come to this idea and to believe it so strongly and so much that I wanted to talk about it? This started with one of my favorite books of 2024. I love to read, and this book really spoke to me, and I just sped through it. I could not put it down. And the book is called The Age of Insecurity by Astra Taylor. And I'll drop a link to the book as well as a link to my favorite books of 2024 in the description. But this book centers around the idea of manufactured insecurity. And the idea that if we are scared and anxious and worried about taking care of ourselves and our families, that we will be quiet and we will be compliant and we will be less likely to speak up against injustices and take risks that are around advocating for ourselves and others, because it literally puts us at more risk. So some examples of manufactured insecurity that I imagine many of you are already aware of. One is job insecurity, right? The fear of losing your job is intentionally stoked by companies to keep employees working harder, accepting lower wages, and in increasingly worsening conditions. I've been hearing more and more about this in early 2025. We also have consumerism adding to insecurity. And this is the idea that we are feeling insecure and perhaps a void in ourselves and our lives. And we are more likely to fill that void by purchasing things, by maybe purchasing things that we don't need. Think about our culture of just keeping up with the Joneses, having to look like we're successful, having to look like we're living an awesome life. And this goes from buying things to social media and to acting in a certain way that looks successful at all costs. So again, this leads us to buying beyond our means, as well as shopping as a way to fill the emptiness we feel when we're not good enough. And this kind of security is fake. This buying of goods makes us feel good for a few minutes, but does not add to our overall sense of security, but we're told that it is. Another item here, think about loans and credit cards and all the ways that we can be put into debt that seems harder to climb out of. And the overall pressure that this can bring when you might be continually in debt and you don't know how to get out. And this makes you less likely to take risks. We also now have the idea of education becoming an area of insecurity, because we are told in our culture that education is incredibly important. But what if education puts you in huge debt, as I just mentioned? So when education becomes a profit center, as we've seen it become, actual learning is no longer the primary focus. And now there is a great pressure to get an education versus going in debt in a very, very difficult job market. And again, we're less likely to take risks because we are in fear. We are worried about what might happen to us. So these are just a few examples out of many, but I hope at this point you're starting to get the idea. I like to offer this. Think about it. Are you going to be more or less likely to work with your coworkers hand in hand and collaborate when there are only a few raises and promotions to go around? Are you truly going to help your colleagues when that risks your own opportunity to grow? Are you truly going to prioritize working together when opportunities for growth are extremely limited? And you might want to. I think most people would say, well, of course I'm going to work with my coworkers and I'm going to collaborate. But when push comes to shove and it's you or them for a promotion or raise, I think a lot of people are going to look out for themselves. This next example gets me even more. Are you going to be more or less willing to speak out against injustice when it could risk you losing your job? And for many people, that also means losing your healthcare. This one really bothers me because it keeps people from speaking out, for standing up for other people. It is a huge problem. The fact is that when we feel unsafe, we are simply not going to be able or as willing to fight for things that we really need or work together with others in that fight. And we are more likely to keep our heads down and just be good little workers. So this book just so very much resonated with me and inspired me because it put into beautiful words what I've really been seeing in my own life and around the people I know and just around the country and the world today. So where Astra Taylor and the Age of Insecurity focuses a lot on the economic impacts of insecurity here, I wanted to extend this a little further and talk about the relational impacts, how this affects how we are with each other, how we talk, how we communicate, and specifically how we work together to solve problems. All right, so what is manufactured disconnection exactly? To me, manufactured disconnection is the idea that there is deliberate fragmentation of human bonds by systems that gain dominance and I would say control and especially profits from keeping us isolated and separated. One thing I want to call out here is that I notice that as I get older, and I think as in general, as people get older, it can be harder to make friends, to find community, to have close, deep connections. But I want to make sure that we're distinguishing that kind of natural thing here from what I'm talking about, which is a systemic process where we are talking about intentional, engineered division that exploits our loneliness and polarization to consolidate power and money. Because this is so ingrained in so many parts of our lives, I see it now as just happening in the background. It's a literal way of being in society. We don't even know that it's happening or that we are a part of it. And it is shaping our everyday behavior through continually encouraging division. And it's division, I would say, that prioritizes control over collaboration. It prioritizes profit over humanity. It prioritizes labeling and disowning other people instead of trying to just understand where they're coming from. And I would also say it prioritizes transactional relationships over those that have deep and shared trust. So there are lots of characteristics that I would point to of manufactured disconnection, but here I'm going to point to what I think are four primary factors here. One is weaponized polarization. This is where leaders, politicians, media, social media, algorithms amplify outrage because conflict allows people to be better controlled and, I would say, monetized. This means promoting and encouraging approaches that are around what I just mentioned. They encourage us to disconnect rather than trying to learn and understand each other. We have literal leaders telling us to do this. This also means encouraging and influencing people for years that if there is one area of disagreement or one area of people's identity that does not exactly match or that conflicts with ours, that they should literally be our enemy. Think about politics right now. When you see a political ad, and I still get quite a lot of them, what do you see is the primary point? What I continue to see in early 2025 is typically nothing about what the person showing me the ad is going to do, how they're going to make my life better. What I see is that there is an enemy, and that enemy is their opponent, and they and we need to do everything we can to defeat the opponent because they are bad, instead of telling us how they're going to make policies and take action that will improve our lives. Oh yeah, and don't forget, I don't have a mission or values other than other side bad, but please give me a bunch of money so I can defeat them. I mean, this is not a winning message for me. And this to me goes for both sides of the political parties in the US. And so one thing I like to think about a lot is that when there is unity around something, action and change can more easily be made. Why do you think there is a huge attack on unions over the last few years? Because if you make unions weak, you can exploit workers and take more and more from them. It is that simple. And the same goes for literally our communities and our families. This trickles down and affects the entire thing. So item number two, this one really gets me. And this is just rampant hypocrisy, inauthenticity, and gaslighting. This is the idea that there is no integrity in our leaders' words versus their actions. So an example here is politicians claiming, as I just mentioned, that their opponent is an existential threat, that they are a racist or they're too woke, they're going to destroy our society, they're a Nazi. And then when that person, their opponent, gets into power, they don't do anything. They don't act as they were talking. This one really bothers me. It really bothers me a lot. Another example, workplaces and corporations that preach collaboration while keeping resources scarce. And so you have to stab your coworker in the back to get a raise or a promotion, as I just mentioned. Another one here is groups or organizations claiming to really care about their employees, especially our underrepresented and our underserved employees. And at the same time, actively creating programs and systems that not only affect all employees negatively, but directly and more damagingly affect those underrepresented employees. It is also a company that is claiming to take a stance at a noble cause while actively donating to politicians or groups that run counter to that very cause that they claim to support. This is literal manipulation that happens every day, getting people to believe in a mission that sounds good while not backing up that mission with actual actions. So how does this add to manufactured disconnection overall? Well, to me, it is because it degrades people's trust. And I would say more damagingly, it models this really bad behavior of being inauthentic, of not backing up your words with your actions, not having integrity around what you're doing versus what you're saying. And so this, in my opinion, just has a huge effect on almost everyone and everything we do, because it's teaching us that this kind of behavior is okay. All right, number 3, we have profit-driven anger and isolation. This is when organizations and companies encourage anger and division, right? Which is also able to be monetized and feeds into our loneliness and disconnection epidemic. I'll dive a little deeper into this in a moment, but I want to give a high level at this point. So what I'm talking about here is traditional media companies telling us how we should feel, which is typically scared and angry at another person or another group that they want us to blame for a problem. So this looks like traditional media companies telling us how we should feel, which is typically scared or angry or upset at a person or a group that they want us to blame for a particular problem we're experiencing, rather than giving us unbiased actual news. This is social media companies using algorithms to keep us angry and engaged, and both of these are mechanisms that prey on our emotions and make us further isolated and divided. And now, in addition, we have an additional problem where we now need more solutions to fix the problems that the things I just described created. We have solutions to fix our loneliness. We have new medications. We have mental health apps that I would say are less human than true person-to-person interaction. And all of this is designed to profit off of the problems that were just created, that I just described. And of course, we now have AI, which can act as a digital companion, which is further disconnecting us from our human abilities of interacting with people and talking to other people. So we have this cycle of bad and negative feelings, which is just being amplified and monetized, followed by platforms and additional methods that are marketed to us to solve these additional problems, whose primary goal is all to make profit and not solve the actual problems themselves. In my opinion, it is a continuous cycle of disconnection and I would say destruction. And last, number 4, the replacement of community. And so through all of this, through all of these problems, I see an issue where human interaction is replaced with transactional substitutes. This means when you go to talk to somebody, you're in an interaction, it is often feeling like, well, should I even talk to you? What do I get out of this? It's very transactional and one way rather than connective and reciprocal. Now we have chatbots doing all of this for us, and it's further degrading these things further and our ability to have trust and have strong conversations that are two-way and again, reciprocal. So I would say this adds to the overall disintegration and trust that continually pervades the things that we do, almost everything that we do, because we spend so much of our time talking to people. And when trust is weakened, we are so much more susceptible, as I see it, to manipulation and coercion to further and further get us to think and believe what these systems want us to believe. Okay, so quick questions to ask and to see if you recognize this in your own life. I like to ask people straight up, do you feel less connection with others these days, right? Pretty simple question. Do you feel more lonely these days? Do you feel like your interactions just lack overall depth and, like I just said, are more transactional than ever? How about this? Are you scared to talk to people about what you really think and believe? Do you find yourself withholding thoughts or feelings a lot? Or do you find yourself not wanting to talk to certain people because you're afraid that a conversation might come up that might be really hard? If so, then yes, in my opinion, you are experiencing manufactured disconnection. And one really important thing I'd like to note here, I would say that manufactured disconnection thrives when we mistake intentional exploitation, what is happening here that I'm describing, instead of personal failure. I think we are kind of taught to believe that a lot of these problems are on us and they're our own fault. But I want to make sure that we call out that it is not 100% your fault that your relationships might be struggling or that your connections might be weaker. It is literally that we have all of this that I just described influencing us every single day, and we need to remember and call that out. Okay, so at this point, I hope you're a little more clear on what I mean when I say manufactured disconnection. Now, I'd like to get into some of what I would say are the causes. What is influencing this in a deeper way? Well, one I already mentioned before, and that is leaders or people in big positions of power continually modeling terrible behavior to us. Next, I would say we have corporate systems of elite wealth that are influencing much of our everyday lives. And this can take the form of economic policy influence. We are pretty well aware at this point that wealthy elites and corporations use economic power and their wealth to shape laws and policies that affect us all and concentrate their wealth while creating a feedback loop that increases our division, increases polarization, and increases inequality. Next, one that I already mentioned but want to touch on a little more is just the media. Hopefully by now, most people know that the majority of major news outlets are completely biased and they are owned by giant corporate monopolies and have a revolving door of employees from governments and other institutions where all of this is designed not to give you actual news, but to sell you a narrative. And this, again, in my opinion, happens on both sides of the political spectrum. And in addition to this, outside of the traditional media, these same institutions also create, I would say, organizations and things like networks and think tanks whose job it is to shape public opinion. And that means that they are literally shaping our beliefs and what we think, and literally encouraging us to fight against things that are better for us. I cannot tell you how often in this work that I do, where people actually confront me about the idea of unity and working and fighting towards things that will make our lives better. I have a good amount of people that tell me, well, look at things like 100 years ago. There has been so much advancement. Things are so much better now. Why are you crying and complaining? And I think this argument is pretty easily debunked, maybe a topic for another video, but I think it's pretty interesting that these ideas exist. I mean, people weren't just born with these ideas. A lot of these ideas were created and put out into the networks and literally shape how people think to the point where we're actually continually fighting against each other, again, rather than collaborating and working together. It is wild to think about, but this actually happens. And I am continually shocked at the amount of people that push back against some of these ideas in the way that they do. Okay, next item, which I hope you're also familiar with, which is tech platforms. This is where we have the algorithmic amplification of division. I hope this is getting to be common knowledge these days, but tech companies found out years ago that content that incites anger and upset generates more activity than other content. And so they changed their algorithms to prioritize this angry kind of content. And we now have systems that feed us more content that activates anger, that activates upset, and it feeds into this continuous cycle of disconnection. I would also add that what tech companies and some of these other systems are doing here are just adding to overall groupthink and getting more and more into these different bubbles where we are stuck in one particular group that believes all the exact same things, and where anything outside of those beliefs within that bubble is wrong or incorrect, and people outside of the bubble have to be our enemies. So in the last example I want to give here, we have social media and influencers that monetize outrage and polarization. So this can be political, but if you've been on social media at all lately, you've probably seen this take many forms and cover many topics. But what I ask here is have you heard of rage bait? And I hope you have at this point. But if you haven't, rage bait is the whole idea of creating a social media post that is designed just to get people upset. And when people get upset, they are more likely to respond, which generates more clicks and views and money for the person who posted it. Imagine all the damage that this is causing. Instead of working on creative solutions and ideas and working on ways we can work together, we are spending our priceless energy and time on endless arguments that don't get us anywhere or advance any cause. And I just want to call out that I don't blame the people and the influencers doing this per se. This was a system that was created and encouraged and perpetuated by tech platforms to incentivize this kind of content. So I think we have to look at a big picture when we look at this problem rather than just blame the influencers themselves. So to wrap this section up, manufactured disconnection is literally an automated amplification of disconnection, and it all operates in concert. We have leaders and people in positions of power that divide us and polarize us. We have the super wealthy and corporate monopolies that are adding to the fragmentation of our society and our communities. We have tech platforms that are amplifying division themselves while increasing their wealth exponentially, which also adds to the fracturing of our society. And then we have those influencers that are monetizing off of our isolation. And this is all while our ability to communicate and work together deteriorates minute by minute. So I just want to spend a moment on the overall impacts here, and hopefully I've touched on these a little bit, but I'll go into a little more detail. One, we just, as you might imagine, have an overall crisis of connection. All of these things are working together to keep us more isolated, more lonely, and I would say more individualistic. And then we are looking for ways to fill these voids we have in us due to these lack of connections. And we know that loneliness rates have skyrocketed over the years. We are afraid to talk to people. We are afraid to speak our minds, as I said in the beginning. And we increasingly avoid connection when we fear that it will be risky to talk to certain people or talk about certain things. We now have in so many corners of our lives, leaders or people in leadership positions that are doing what I would say is the literal opposite of what I expect a leader to be. I don't know about you, but do you have a strong trust in many or any of the leaders that are in your lives? Are they transparent? Do you believe them when they say what they are going to do? Do they do what they say they are going to do? And if they don't, do they take responsibility for it? Do they have a strong vision or mission that inspires you and that you deeply believe in? Do you feel like these leaders have your best interests in mind? I don't see a lot of this in my life, and that is why I am so passionate about this. This, again, just seeps into so much of our lives where we have overall less trust, as I said, in just about everything, because people that we're supposed to look up to cannot be trusted. They're not giving us authenticity. They're not being transparent. And we see this more than more, and it makes us think in a way that this is okay, and people start to embody that in their own lives. Next, and these last two are just so important to me, and this one is just the overall solidarity crisis that we're seeing. We have a fragmentation of movements and an inability to address collective challenges and the overall ability for us to work together to make decisions, to solve hard problems. This one is just so huge and important to me because we are literally missing out on some of the things that make us most human. Our ability to come together into groups and to use our passions, our hearts, our souls, and to create amazing things, to inspire people to build new things, to grow, to innovate, and to make great things and movements that propel all of us forward. This leads me to my overall final point on the impact of manufactured disconnection, and it brings me to another one of my favorite books of 2024, which is called The Art and Science of Connection by Kazli Killam. And the idea in this book, it suggests, and it backs up, I would say, with scientific data, that there is this idea of social health, which is described as the amount and quality of the connections with other people that we have in our lives. And the idea that this directly impacts our health just as much as our mental and physical health, which we prioritize so much. So it talks about the impacts of being less connected and having less people in our lives, where due to what is happening, many people are having a decline in what is described as their social health, where they have fewer friends, where they have more alone time, and where they have decreased participation in community events and interactions with people like neighbors. And the studies in this book show that stronger social relationships and connections lead to a better and healthier and overall longer life. Because with stronger relationships in our our lives, we can feel better supported and we can get support when we most need it. And this helps mitigate stress and reduce things like inflammation, which again helps us be overall more healthy and less likely to get sick. This is just insane to me, but I believe it. I believe it based on the interactions I've had in my life. So what we have here is manufactured disconnection, which is leading to poor social health, as mentioned in the book, which is limiting even further the quality of connections in our lives, which then is adding more anxiety, more stress, and causing less creativity and less working towards positive change. This is such a big impact, in my opinion. But maybe even worse off, the impact on our actual health and our ability to fight disease. I cannot say this one enough. The idea that we can live longer lives by having better connections while we have a system actively working against that is insane to me. So I hope you can see really clearly at this point that the cost of manufactured disconnection makes the world a place where we have the collective inability to address huge challenges that require real cooperation, along with causing literal damage to our health and our quality of life. Does this sound as terrible to you as it does to me? Because it sounds terrible to me. And so I hope you're with me in the idea that we really need to be aware of this and work together on it, because it will continue to affect us if we don't. So what can we do about all of this? One of the very first things that I would say we can do is simply to grow our awareness around manufactured disconnection and just know that it exists, and the idea around how it came to be, what things influence it, what impacts it has, what things proliferate it. Because being aware of something is, in my opinion, the first step in being able to make change around it. This might look like the next time you see a person, or I would say especially a leader or someone in a position of power that is trying to divide and make enemies out of a people or group, I challenge you to question it. You might think, well, why is this person trying to get me to fight this group or this other side or this other person? What ways does this person trying to divide me benefit by saying that? And now that you have awareness around it, you can hopefully make a choice rather than blindly following that direction to be divided, to disconnect from someone else. In addition, I think we can literally rebuild our muscles of connection and communication that have weakened due to the impacts of manufactured disconnection. We can work again to challenge ourselves, to have better conversations, to practice skills that we can all learn that will improve our ability to not only connect with others, but have deeper connections with others. Additionally, I think we can all be better leaders. It might be cliche at this point to say that everyone is a leader, but I truly believe this. We all have unique abilities and things that we can teach people in our lives. We all have unique abilities to see good in others and empower others to live great lives. This, to me, is leadership. And if the people in positions of power are not truly going to lead us and lead us in a healthy way, it is up to us, in my opinion, to model the leadership that we want to see in the world. And I think this is something that all of us can do. It does not matter if you're in a leadership position at work or in your community or anywhere. We can all model leadership to everyone in our lives, and it is another skill that we can learn through practice and through working with other people. Lastly, I truly believe that we can find common ground and solidarity with others. We can build bridges across this manufactured divide that has been artificially made in front of us. This isn't about doing this all on our own. This is about working together with others and relearning how to do that, how to work with others, especially when we disagree, because no two people are exactly the same. We are all going to disagree about something. And we have been told that when that happens, that we shouldn't be working together and we shouldn't be talking. But I very much disagree with that. I think what makes us great is our differences. And if we can learn to see through that and remember how to work together with each other, we can really make great change here. And so the ideas and solutions that I'm suggesting here require three main things, in my opinion, to really take hold. One, I just mentioned, and that is awareness, just knowing what is out there, knowing what is impacting us and influencing us. Two is around the idea of practice, practicing new things, practicing new ways of being in the world, trying trying out different concepts and ideas and literally practicing them so we can see if it works for us. I think no one practice or leadership style or way of being in the world is going to work the same for each of us. We all have to look into and find the things that really call to us that work. So while there's lots of different concepts and ideas and things we can try out there, I think we need to go an extra step of beyond just thinking about them and actually putting them into play and into practice in our lives. And I would say, especially with other people in our lives in groups. And the third item here is taking some of that awareness and perhaps some of those practices that you've been working on and putting everything into action. And I would say into action as a group, where maybe we work together with multiple people on things that are really important to us, using some of these new skills and challenging ourselves again to remember just how to work with others again, how to create and to build and to make decisions with a group, especially when we might have different beliefs, which we all do. The things that I'm describing here are literally part of what I do and what I offer and what are just passions of mine. I have realized over the last few years that these are not only passions of mine, but they're also just feel like a part of my purpose. And I genuinely love to help in these areas. So there are a few ways you can follow me to take advantage of things I offer in terms of building the muscles of connection, leadership, and solidarity. Muscles that have, in my opinion, very much withered under this automation of disconnection. And some of the ways you can follow me are: one, you can sign up for my monthly newsletter where I offer insights on all of these topics. I also run monthly events where I offer practices, like I just mentioned, on how to work on these things and how to work on these things in groups. I am continually creating new resources and ways to practice and build these skills. And members of my newsletter get access to all of these resources as they come out, as well as the archive of all of my previous content. I also offer direct trainings to groups and organizations to improve these skills. And again, the best way to stay in touch with all of this is to follow the newsletter, which in my opinion is very light touch. It's once a month. I try to make it as valuable as possible. And if that's not the way you'd like to follow, that is all good. And at the very least, if this spoke to you, as I said in the beginning, maybe you can give a like or a follow here to spread the reach of this work. And the last thing I would suggest, and another way to keep connection going, is to share your own feedback here with me in the comments, or I would say even better, to tell someone about it. If this spoke to you, explain this concept to somebody, see what they think, see if it resonates, have a conversation with someone else, just talk about it with someone else, share what you learned and ask if they agree or disagree, and just again, talk about it. I think this is one of the first steps in spreading the word, not only about connection, but about just new ideas as well. Okay, so in closing, I just want to thank everyone for watching, and I want to especially thank anyone who made it to this point in the video at the end. To me, this is just the beginning. I've got a lot more to come, and I really hope you will join me in this mission of building bridges and building connections, especially in the face of so many influences that are telling us not to. So thank you so much for now, and I will see you again real soon.